I've been riding at Aowanda and the Aowanda Riverbed and Nantou area for quite a few years now, and there's one thing that you need to realize about Aowanda. At the Aowanda Park, where the two rivers, the two forks come together, there is a system of flumes, and they direct the water in different ways. And sometimes I've observed that when I'm in the riverbed, that the water is quite high below that point and quite fast, and sometimes it's very, very low. And then once you get above that point, you get the regular water. Now, it's not a dam, so you are not going to get a flood of the water the way that you would get in Wujie or some other place when it opens. But you will get the full force of the water that comes from the two tributaries that come together at that location. Now, I am aware that they can flip it at any time, and I have seen where some motorcycle riders were caught in the section of riverbed when the water started to rise, and they became quite worried. Now, it has never happened to me before, but on this trip it did happen to me, and I wanted to share my experience so that you are aware of it. So I came up from the entrance that is far below, and I rode up past the Aowanda Park, and I went up to the hot springs and experienced that. Now, I did notice that there's a little bit more water this year than in previous years, and it's an interesting and kind of exciting ride up. It was on the edge of my comfort level. The water would grab my front tire and kind of jerk it to the side a bit. So when I exited the hot spring area, I came back out to the main area, and I immediately noticed a change in the water. When I came to this point of the river, I had a good pause and a think, because I didn't remember crossing this before. Now, I had crossed here, but there was essentially no water in it when I crossed before. I hadn't given it a single thought. It did not occur to me at this point that they had switched the flume and the whole waterway had changed. I made the crossing fairly easy and continued on. Here I am continuing on the tracks that most of the cars use to get in and out, and I should have followed the tracks, but I had come in the riverbed, and so my policy is generally to go out the way that I came in. Here I became quite worried when I saw the volume of water, and whenever you have a wall, it is quite dangerous. The water tends to dig the riverbed very deep, and it tends to move very fast along a wall. And so even though I could see that sometimes cars cross here, 4x4s cross here, I was not interested in crossing here. I felt like it was too dangerous. At this point, I should have gone back and taken the road that the other cars took that is on top of this wall, but I was still trying to follow the tracks that I had used to get into this place, and so I looked for a crossing to this. I did not think that it would be that bad, because I've been in this riverbed quite a few times, and even with the flumes open, the maximum water flow is not that high, and it's the same as what's above, which I had done many of the crossings before, so I didn't think it would be much of an issue. So I surveyed the water crossings, and I found a place that I felt was the smoothest on the bottom. You can look at the ripples, and it's generally pretty smooth. One issue here is that the water is so churned up and murky that you cannot see the depth. You cannot read the depth of the stream. So you have to just read the surface of the water. So I picked this place and I start into it. The front tire dropped immediately, quite drastically, and at this point I was regretting my decision, but getting back out can be difficult. So I blasted forward, and instantly the water speed was much higher than I had anticipated. The bike is trying to be pushed over to the right, so I leaned hard against the water and I just kept the revs up and worked my way out of it. Front and rear tire were sliding sideways while I was in there. Now I regretted my decision. I wanted to be on the other side, but that crossing was not a good crossing. So I figured I would head down, make one more crossing, and try and get out. The next crossing was a fairly easy crossing, and it was smooth sailing. Then I came to another wall where the water is pushed against the wall. And as I said before, crossing at walls and doing things at walls is quite dangerous. So it's pretty spread out here, and I figure the force of water is much, much lower. I can see that other vehicles have crossed here, so I went for it. Now the force of the water here is much higher than I had anticipated, and it almost knocked me over. And that was the closest I came to dropping the bike in the water. Now you can see here on the right that this is the exit that bikes can take, and so I made one more crossing and I got out of the river, and I was happy to be out. Now, the force of the water dissipates very quickly. I checked it out farther downstream, and the downstream is much less fast and dangerous. But you should be aware, conditions will vary based on the year and how much water is flowing, and make sure that if you enter in here, you're aware of the dam and how it can be switched, and you're ready for whatever water flow could come down through here. Also, it's advisable to follow the big car tracks whenever possible and stay high on the wall rather than down here close to the dam entrance.